In this section, we're going to talk about how innovation, lean, agile, all of these different processes, how they all fit together. Bottom line is getting an innovation for your product. In this section, product leaders learn about the connection between products created using agile practices, a lean process, and innovation. We learned in the beginning of this training how cognitive biases work against finding the right product and how Agile helps counter those biases. Idea, prototype, and build validations target the right product in the shortest amount of time. Agile iterations minimize the overhead to discover and develop your product. So let's go deeper to understand specific ways that this overhead is reduced. There are multiple ways that Agile iterations reduce this overhead. In a traditional non-Agile development process, product managers create traditional requirements using three major activities: define, design, and document. In define, they gather requirements from outside and inside customers. In design, they decide how these requirements should be built. And in document, they describe what work needs to be done in the previous define and design steps. They repeat these steps many times and continue to add new layers until all requirements are defined, designed, and documented. This slide shows these three steps of define, design, and document in a sequential spiral pattern. It represents the continuous effort of layering that goes into accumulating all the large requirements ball that documents the functionality and features of a product. There is reduced documentation overhead from Agile. In the traditional requirements spiral, a large amount of detailed documents are needed to capture the months or even years of design work, so it can be stored and eventually passed to the execution team. These material requirement documents and product requirement documents, MRDs and PRDs, have a poor return on investment because they rarely translate the real-world action that software products must perform. They keep the focus on what the product does rather than what the customer needs. Agile user stories eliminate much of this documentation and the resources needed to produce them. Not only is there less need for documentation due to the short cycles, but the communication used by user stories is far more valuable and productive. As the foundation of Agile documentation, each story specifies what customer needs and what the benefit is. User stories are also augmented by low-cost verbal communication. There's reduced project management overhead from Agile. Traditional project managers have their work cut out for them, creating traditional spiral requirements. First, they provide the necessary glue to bind together the hundreds of layers in the requirements ball. As each spiral adds more layers of functionality onto the requirements ball, it becomes increasingly dense, opaque, and unwieldy, and resource intensive. Third, after the requirements are done, project management works in reverse to help unwind the ball as requirements are built. In Agile product development, everything is done in small increments, eliminating the large ball to manage. The Agile cycle contains a complete define, design, build for each small bit of functionality. The limited mental model is easier to hold in your head, easier to understand, and easier to communicate. As a result, it requires less than proportional amount of management. In other words, it's more efficient. The Scrum Master handles the limited project management tasks that are needed to keep a small Agile cycle organized and moving along. The traditional way to track development process is by ticking off tasks in a project plan. This is not accurate because it measures work completed, not product value. A similar thing happens in the medical world, where I come from. where financial claims data is used to track patient progress. This is a poor way to measure since 1/3 of the healthcare costs are wasted on unneeded tests and drugs. So there's not a correlation between the two, not a strong correlation. Instead of tracking tasks, Agile measures real progress by how much validated customer functionality is created. There's reduced software development overhead from Agile. The many layers of traditional spiral development need a deep layer of software to build the product. Customers see the product at the end of the build process, give their feedback, and cause changes to the product. The changes in one part of the software have to ensure it doesn't break the other features in the total product package. In Agile, each small layer of software is customer validated as it's built. If changes are needed, it only interacts with layers below it, requiring less work. This creates a stable base of working software to build new functionality on. So this table summarizes the traditional versus Agile process differences. So then documentation, the traditional is complex designs are captured, and Agile user stories and verbal communication provide the documentation. Project management has hundreds of layers to wind and unwind in the traditional requirements ball. In Agile, there's less needed because of the short incremental builds. And for stable software, many layers are needed in the total package, and they all interact with each other. In Agile, there's fewer interactions because it's only the interactions below it, and it forms a stable software base. Stick with Agile and avoid getting sucked into this deep process and all of the associated overhead. So the biases, validation, and overhead form the foundation for the next level up, a lean development process. This lean process minimizes the development costs while maximizing the product's speed and accuracy to market. When a lean development process minimizes product discovery time and cost, how does this specifically affect the business bottom line? So if you're a startup, it can mean the difference between staying alive or shutting down. If you're creating a product within a larger portfolio of products, it can mean the difference between product success and failure. If you're extending an existing product or pivoting to a new version, the difference in development costs can be the difference between profitability or loss. So when your product process is lean, your business is more likely to survive and thrive, giving your product time to succeed and creating an opportunity for innovation to happen. How can I begin to use this? So you start out and evaluate what your top 3 product leader activities are that can reduce the effort and speed up the time and accuracy to market in your company. Start today and boost your product innovation.